So I actually want to start this video off with a little bit of I guess a little morale booster, a little bit of little optimism on why it is I think you should really take this serious. But my word of advice and my kind of my push to try that extra little bit is to really think about 2 weeks, 2 months, 6 months, 12 months are going to go by regardless. What you do with that time is up to you. You don't have a choice of whether it passes or not. Um, and that's how I really, when there was things I didn't want to do in art, when there was things I didn't want to do when I started developing this game on my own, I said, okay, what are my options? I could either give up, just kind of stop doing it and go back to my life. But what's really going to suck is in 12 months, I'm going to look back and I go, God, I kind of hate past me. 12 months passed, and if I just stuck with it, I would be here regardless. Like you almost go through the motions. You're not trying to create good art. You're not trying to like prove something or achieve something. If you just simply show up and do the work, you will be better for it. And that stuff will be out of the way. You'll be done. You'll be on to making fun art and just hanging out with other artists and experiencing different techniques people use. But right now, it's the boring stuff. If you really push for it, if you really just go, I'm going to do this. This is something I've always wanted to be. This will help. And yeah, so anyway, let's get started. I hope that helps, guys. So perspective. What is perspective? Well, and actually, why am I starting with it first? Well, since we're concept artists, we're creating things for a three-dimensional world, and a three-dimensional world is the foundations of everything. Um, so when you think of any art, it's technically living on a flat piece of paper, right? Uh, this is your canvas. So when you're drawing on this canvas, um, you're trying to convince people that there's some sort of depth into the paper, right? Um, and that is all the trickery and magic of perspective. If you can't master this, it's hard to really move on to the world of art because everything lives in a three-dimensional world. But yeah, so I'm going to kind of give you a simplistic rundown of how you can use perspective to give volume, to give dimension, literally volume. Think of like a bucket or a bathtub. There is a volume to the things you draw, to the spaces you draw. So the best way I saw it is essentially think about, in reality, we have up and down, or we have width, essentially width. That's one dimension. That's two dimensions. You have up and down, left and right, and then forward and backwards. These are your three dimensions. There's nothing more. It's that simple. Just three. So if you think of this as like a table, and think of this as like a wall, and think of this as the adjacent wall. That's your space you work in. And the way I want to describe perspective kind of uses this to our advantage. So the terminology for perspective I'm going to use are your horizon line. And when you think of a horizon line, that's like everything you see off in the distance. When you see mountains and the ocean ends at the horizon line, all the distant stuff, that is your horizon line. The horizon line never changes. It's always out there in the distance. It can't move up. It can't really move down. You can look up and it'll be lower because of it, or you can look down, it'll be higher. If you're in a hole, that's kind of a special case. But essentially, your horizon line is just always out front and center. So this is your horizon line. The other terminology you're going to use is your vanishing point. So your vanishing point is, I'll do that in red, is the point where all of your lines converge. And don't get overwhelmed by that just yet. So we use VP for vanishing point, and that is where all of your shapes converge off into the distance. The best way to describe that is like a railroad track. When you it's interesting because our brains aren't really made to think like this, but think of a railroad track. If you're looking at a railroad track, the railroad track doesn't look like this as it goes off into the distance, right? If this was the horizon line, and these are the mountains in the distance, why does the railroad track not look like this, right? What happens with the railroad track is everything converges on a space off in the distance, and you can see all the railroad ties, and they actually look like they get further apart from each other the closer they get to you. This is what we're talking about when we talk about perspective and 3D. So in order to figure out how this works and how it's almost like a cheat, because we're on a 2D piece of paper, but there are rules in the real world that, like, in like the 14th and 15th century, they started figuring out that, like, oh, this is how actual space works. This is how we can fake it on paper. So what we're going to do is we're going to go through 4 types of perspectives. The first one's really easy. It is what I'm calling 0-point perspective. There are literally no vanishing points. If this was your horizon line, nothing ever converges. These lines don't converge. We'll start with our red lines. How about 0-point perspective has 0 vanishing points. So even if we were to draw, and maybe I shouldn't do this, even if we were to draw the cube at a 45-degree angle, none of our lines converge. If you were to run this line forever, they stay parallel to each other. So this is 0-point perspective. They also call this isometric view. Like if you think of like Stardew Valley or any other kind of top-down pixel art game, this is the type of perspective they use. It's actually kind of like a fake perspective. It could never exist in the real world the way things work. The only thing that really exists is 3-point perspective. But with art, you can actually get away with 1-point and 2-point, and it works, it sells. So let's move on. I'll try not to confuse you guys. So this is the horizon line. For this, it does not converge anywhere. And this you guys can already do. Like, the rules to 0-point perspective is to make sure these lines are always equal distance apart on both sides. So now we have 1-point perspective. And as you can maybe guess, for the quicker ones in the bunch, 1-point perspective takes the green face. The green face is still not converging on anything, but the red face does converge now. So what you're basically doing is you're taking one of these 3 and you're squeezing it to touch this point. If you can remember anything, 1-point perspective is literally just 1 point off in the distance that the lines that are pointed towards it will squeeze to. So even if I draw my box over here, it's just a flat box. Remember, these lines are staying parallel, but now if I was to draw my lines going up, you actually want them to all go to the same vanishing point. And then if you think of this box, if you just take this box and drag it down here, it fits like that. Also, draw through your perspective. It really helps. Take this point and draw it all the way to over there. If you had a box right here, and this might get confusing, guys, I really, really want this to help. So if this is bugging you, if this is weird, this is super new for your brain, so it's going to be confusing. I can make a few different types of videos covering this. I'll rework this video. I'll delete this video if I have to, if I find a better way to explain this. So again, all going back to the same vanishing point. This is 1-point perspective, and this is usually used when you look down a hallway, when you have these things that everything just looks like it's coming at you like this. So to find in 1-point perspective, to find the back of a box, so you can draw the front of a box, right? It's simply just a square. Remember, nothing's converging. To find the back of the box, all you have to do is make let me do this in red so you can see a little better. Make your lines from all 4 corners of the box touch the vanishing point, Let's go like this actually, so you got better understanding. Dimension. Like this. Red will be in front, just so you can really see. And then this bar goes in front of that, right? So in order to find the back of the box, all you gotta do is draw a smaller box connect these two green lines, just like that, and then connect the green line from the red line, but make sure it's straight. It's literally following the horizon line. It's parallel to the horizon line from the red to the red, and from the red to the green again, just like you're essentially doing up here. And this becomes a perfect box in perspective. This may be a little bit slow for some of you and a little bit too fast for others, but if this is too slow for you, realize that this stuff, it's good to watch this more than once. It's good to watch this 10 times, to be honest, because you can't understand this stuff enough. So here is our kind of transparent box. So I'll move on. I might brush over these one more time. So this is, let's move this down. This is, here's your VP. This is 1 point. POI POINT. Dyslexia. It's a bitch. 1 point perspective. So 2 points perspective is where things start to get pretty hairy. And I'll try to slow down for this. So, same as anything before. We start with the horizon line. The horizon line doesn't change. Nothing scary has happened yet. Horizon line, just to set yourself up. And what happens with 2 point perspective is once you take a cube, I'll do 1 point perspective. Once you take a cube, this cube is pointing directly at the horizon line, right? Once you take a cube, excuse me, there's your VP. Once you take a cube and you rotate it, that's what creates a 2 point perspective. It might sound really, really weird, but if you think of these lines pointing towards the vanishing point, it's actually the other way around. If I was to rotate this box this way, like the way the arrows are pointing, this vanishing point would actually move down the line, so all the lines would still converge. So let's try it. I'm going to rotate my box. I actually know how to draw this stuff already, so I'm just gonna, actually no, let me not cheat you guys. So let's say I want my box to be at an angle. The vanishing point slides, but now we have a problem. We're getting these lines in, but where do these lines go? And that's what introduces this second vanishing point. So as soon as it breaks this perfect pointing direction to, like, running parallel, basically, if this box, edge of this box is running parallel with the horizon line, it's 1 point. The second it breaks that, and you can kind of fudge it a little bit, and that doesn't mean moving things off to the side. This is still technically pointing towards that direction. It hasn't rotated, it's just shifting. So don't confuse that with rotation. You can shift in any direction, but as soon as you rotate, now, since this is where it's sitting in front of, you have to find a second set of lines. And if you're smart, you think about it, this is your first set, so your second set would be the green ones. Actually, it would be the, don't quote me on this, we'll figure it out. Perspective's still a little crazy. Would be blue. So anything that's blue, let's actually put our vanishing point here. This is cheating a little bit because usually your vanishing points aren't this close together in 2 point perspective, and that's what I'm not going to show you because it's a little complicated. It's basically just a lens problem, but for argument's sake, what we can do is we can simply lay down a second VP2, VP1, and you can put this at any distance. You can put this way off the page. You don't really want to get them too close to each other, or it will start to break the perspective. But it still technically works. If you look at this, oh, this is a blue line. So I go, okay, these lines are generally it's easy to find your vanishing point 1, because I see a lot of people get confused. Anything that's kind of generally going this way, just start on the furthest space, the plane that's furthest away from it, and connect the dots. And you can see I was actually wrong. That is where it connects. You take from the furthest plane from the vanishing point, which would be this, and you just connect. And this is now my actual, and connect. And lines are going this way, so from the furthest plane from that, I connect. And look, you can see how off I was. It actually connects right here. So this is 2-point perspective. And it's simply that. You just add another vanishing point and you connect the dots. If you want to make this cleaner, you can kind of erase your lines. And if you want to kind of make it look a little bit prettier, you can maybe fill in the top, fill in the side. Perfect perspective in 2D, or in a 2-point perspective. And again, that was a rotation. We can go like this and have the box just slightly. Let me make this a little bit simpler. I'll do another version over. Actually, I'm just going to scale all of this down for you guys, just like that. Okay, so new picture, new horizon line. Oops, that is HL. And for this one, I'm going to barely have it coming. This is barely off. Actually, I'll do a little bit more because that's pretty extreme. Okay, and what's going to happen is your vanishing point's actually going to be quite far off the page. So if you just run a line down there, let's just say here, this is still technically 2-point perspective. And again, for the third line, we haven't got the 3-point perspective. It's just a straight line. Everything just converges. And the problem is, it's like, okay, we have these lines, but I don't quite know how short to make them. So you can pick any arbitrary space here, because remember, it's the furthest plane away. I'll color code this again. So let's start with our blue plane. Start with our yellow plane. I mean, our red plane. And anything that's trying to run that direction, you know what point to make it touch. So you can even let's color code these blue, and this is my red VP. So it'll be R VP and B VP. So you know if it's blue and it's the furthest plane away from it, I can take any point and connect it. I could go down here if I wanted. It just makes my box into a rectangle. If I want to finish it from here, I connect it from the furthest plane. Remember, think of this as just a piece of glass pointing towards these. It wouldn't be the one that's up here, right? That's too close. You want the furthest one. Just like that. And then if you draw your line, this is getting a little hairy. What I'll end up doing, and you'll probably want to do this too, is make it transparent. And then you can go in and detail it out on a new layer. And I hope I'm explaining this well, because it's not. I'm trying to give you essentially a set of rules to rely on. So remember, that's a red line. This is going in blue direction. I don't know where, but as long as you're like, okay, it's going this way, Oh, duh. Okay, if it's going this way in any possible way, literally you have to tap it to exactly center, and that gives you perfect perspective. It's going this way generally. Okay, this is a red line. Tap it directly center. It will not lie to you. I used to think that I could like fix my perspective and that things were off. This is the point. You gotta be really careful to make sure you see right where it intersects. That is perfect perspective. And then what's cool is you can just hold shift and slide straight up. Ooh, a little bit off. It's a tiny bit off. It might be from clicking my direction, or like to the left or right of here. So yeah, that's pretty much it. You can do this from any angle. So we're gonna stay in the same project, let's say, same environment, and so let's just run an arbitrary line way over here with blue, and let's take an arbitrary line always from the point. The one constraint you have is this point. I could run it intersect there, I could have it intersect there, I could have it intersect there. It doesn't matter. I can draw a straight line down from any of these. And what it lets me do is I take blue, and I'm trying to draw a box. Take blue, run it to there. Take blue, run it to there. You can see really quickly, forming boxes. Direction the lines this way. So I want to go from corner to corner, from corner. Oops, let's be super accurate with that. To corner. I swear, guys, this will be the most uninteresting video I show here. So once we get into painting and stuff, it'll be a blast. But it just sucks because everything lives in this space. So if I'm going a bit fast for you, be sure to just rewind. And remember, I'm dropping. This could be a really thin cube. This could be a rectangle. And to complete the bottom of that, I think the direction it kind of wants to go. And you might have to just make mistakes, try things. Your brain will start to wrap its head around it. It's a very strange concept, so don't expect this to be natural to you. Everything flows this way for the blue lines, so the furthest plane from it, you don't want to start here and go, because you run the trouble of hitting that line, and then when you follow through, it actually doesn't line up. You want to use the furthest corner of your box to find the full scale of the box. So this is a really nice view of the box. You can just get the whole bottom there. Get a gray side and blue side. So that is covering 1 and 2 point perspective. You know what, guys? I'm not gonna cover 3-point perspective. I'll cover it really quickly, but this is gonna go over your heads. It's really just an addition to 3-point, and you can kind of guess it. Remember, we're crimping down these lines and these lines, but these lines have still stayed parallel to each other. Nothing changes in these distances. It doesn't matter if you go 100 miles, nothing changes. All 3-point perspective is basically dropping a perspective line down under your box. Actually, for this example, it would be above it because we're looking up at it. And I can kind of get into why that is, but you essentially pretend you have a vanishing point like way up here, right? Now your lines would go like that. And this is how you make things look like they're really tall, or like you're a bird flying in the sky. Like, I'll show you guys something really cool. Like, again, remember the blue lines going this way in general. Connect. Remember, the furthest surface, red. Connect. That is proper perspective. And it's weird because I look at this, I'm like, oh, that looks weird and skewed. This is exactly proper perspective. So what this looks like is like you're looking up at a tower, right? This is how concept artists make you believe you are looking up at this epic tower, right? You put like some like cool antennas, like dude, you could Blade Runner the shit out of this thing so quick. Like put some paneling, and like the paneling follows perspective rules. Nothing. Why can't I get blue? Nothing is exempt from this. So maybe you have some cool like, but the thing is, I've been doing this for so long, I can simply just like eyeball it, like, because what I do is I average the space between this line and this line. As it gets closer to that line, it rotates that way. As it gets closer to this line, if that makes any sense, like this, you see how the lines slowly transition to getting flatter and flatter. As they get to the horizon line, they actually get completely flat. Everything on the, like if you have a building like this, you'll have perspective that goes like that essentially. Okay, I'm jumping all over the place. So anyway, yeah, that's 3-point perspective in a nutshell. And what's cool is, depending on where you put it, if it's above the horizon line, your vanishing point is going to be up above it, and it'll look like you're looking up at a building. But if I just simply flip this image and the cube is below the horizon line, your third vanishing point will be below the object, and now it looks like you're flying over a city. So that is 3-point perspective. Please rewind this video if rewind, that's so archaic, isn't it? Please step back in this video if you need a refresher, and I will do another one if I'm seeing a consistency of problems with teaching this. With that perspective, with 2-point and 3-point perspective, I'm gonna go back to 2-point because it's easier. I want to show you guys a thing called the what I call the elevator. So let's just call this VP1 and VP2. Let's color code them because that's really helpful. VP2, that should be 1, but whatever, it's going to be backwards. And VP1, okay. What I want to do is take a blue line, and we can drop it randomly. Like, if you think like, okay, I want my cube somewhere like here, it's gonna be 2 points perspective, so it'll be at a 45-degree angle. You can just simply take your line, and just draw a random line. Take your red, and it can drive anywhere along this line. It could be here, it could be here, oops. It could be here, it could be here if the blue line was long enough, it could be here, it could be way over here if you wanted to have a cube over here. But for argument's sake, we'll just keep it right here, right up in front. We're going to start with the most basic thing. We're not even going to make and I'd like you guys to follow along with this. We're not going to make a cube, we're going to make a square. That's it. So from the furthest point away from VP2, we draw a line. We take our blue, and from the furthest line away from VP1, we draw to the point, and you have a perfect cube, or I mean perfect square. So what I'm calling the elevator is the way, kind of showed you up above, is the way things change as they make their way towards the horizon line. So let's say you have an elevator and it's going up, and each elevator there's a floor. Every time you draw a line, let's get all 4 lines in there, because we actually know where all 4 lines are, right? It's just the intersection of each of these, and it's a strict, since it's 2-point perspective, it's just parallel lines straight up. Tons of art is just 2-point perspective, so this is already very advanced. But let's say we want to add floors to this, right? All you have to do is take the furthest line. If you're trying to draw blue lines, remember you gotta take the furthest line away from that vanishing point and draw a line. Let's make it brighter so we can really tell that it's like out in front. Draw a line. And what's interesting about making these elevator floors is the closer you get, I'm gonna do this like this actually. The closer you get to your horizon line, the flatter it gets. So like you can see there, we're almost so close to the horizon line, you can basically just draw a straight line. If the floor fell right on the horizon line, that's the way it'd look. And then as it goes up, the angle starts to get more steep again. Remember, the furthest line, you got to pay attention a little bit because you can get confused by that back line. So you just got to take that extra second, go, and your brain will get used to it. The same thing goes with the red lines. What's really nice about this is since it's a floor, you just need to connect to the same spot. But remember, the furthest away from your vanishing point. And make all your connections. And you have just successfully made a building or an elevator. And the reason I'm having you guys draw this is because there's something really cool that happens. And remember, blue lines going this way, so I start from the furthest one away and I draw. What's interesting here is if you look at maybe this section and let's say this section. If you look at these sections, and I'm going to turn this really transparent, and then go like this so we can talk about it. Look at these sections. They're the exact same 3D object, but as they get closer to the I'm gonna do one more because I'm crazy. Start at the furthest point. This one's gonna be really hard. It is such a sliver, but this will prove my point. Oh, that's crazy. Okay, so as things get to the horizon line, always remember they get thinner and thinner looking. Think of like a plate or like a piece of paper. If you actually hold it out in front of you, like hold your hand out in front of you and hold it straight and try to hold it where the horizon line is. And simply just raise your hand up and then raise your hand down, and you'll realize that you start to see the bottom of your hand and then the top of your hand based on the height of it. And so right now we're actually looking at the bottom here, less of the bottom, and then if we were to, I'm gonna cheat here. If we were to draw this, that's not gonna work. If you're to continue drawing, just take my word for it, you'd start to see the top surface. That's really useful to understand that as things get to the horizon line, they converge like that. Oh wow, we're already at 30 minutes. Okay, so I'm gonna wrap this up. I tried to cover it all in one video, but yeah, it's definitely better if I think this is actually a really good time to split this up. What's nice is with the cube and being able to do the cube in 1, 2, and 3 point perspective, we can start to pull out all sorts of different shapes. And that's what we'll go over next time. I will teach you essentially how to be able to do a triangle and a perfect cylinder in 3D space. And from these shapes, we could do a pyramid actually. A pyramid is really easy because you find your center points. Oops, here we go. I'll show you guys how to do a pyramid. And what this will give us is the tools to really start to attack all the things in nature. When it comes to anatomy, when it comes to industrial design, machines, guns, buildings, any kind of architecture, the face, the nose is just a triangle with chunks cut out of it and another chunk put here. And what learning perspective does is you're going to forget these rules. You'll never do this stuff. You'll never use these vanishing points. You have to do this because what this does is it teaches your mind how to think in 3D space on a 2D piece of paper. There is no way around it. There is no way around it. Some people will be natural at it. Some people are really going to struggle with it. For the ones that struggle with it, this is your cup of tea. The worse you are at it, I'm sorry, the more you're going to have to do this. So in the next video, we will move on to application, and then it is on to the fun art. We'll get to the nitty-gritty of painting and value and making light look cool and textures and all that yummy stuff. So I appreciate you guys sticking through this with me. That was a fairly long video. The next one will probably be a little bit shorter, and then I'm hoping the videos after that will be one video a piece. So yes, until next time, thank you for stopping by. Share this with your art friends if you know they're struggling, and also lastly, I think I'll be creating a Discord because I want to give you guys homework for each of these, and that would be an awesome place to share this stuff and to definitely start building a posse and some friends. So all that stuff is in the works, but practice everything you saw here. Watch this video again if you need to, and let me know, again, please let me know if there's anything I can help you guys with, clarify things, and I will do my best to get back to you guys. Thanks for stopping by. I will see you soon. Bye.